Hello, my friends, and welcome to this is my fourth live stream. So I did a test and then I have begun, and I just want to show up with consistency. And right now I'm playing with 2 times in the day that I think will be the most appropriate for my schedule and what I'm looking to accomplish. So looking at 12:30 p.m. Eastern and 9:30 p.m. Eastern as my 2 times of the day that I'm going to show up. And as I grow, these topics will evolve. And as uh, I have, this is definitely a year of learning for me. I'm continuing on as a graduate student, and I will be completed with my program in 2024. But this 2023 is just a head down academics. But there's things I want to learn that are not part of my academic program, but I think are very key for the direction that I want to go. And they include computer programming. So even though data science includes GIS and my academic studies are in GIS, I still feel like learning more programming. And also because I'm getting more involved in things that are leaning towards geopolitics, and my undergrad was in international relations, I'm feeling very called to learn languages. So there's sort of three to four kind of major themes that I want to talk about in these live streams. So one of them is learning data science with my goal to be a really good data visualizer. The second one for me is learning foreign languages. And so I'd like to kind of create an opportunity to share and communicate around languages. The other things that I am also interested in learning and sharing. So it's the data science piece, it's the foreign language piece, it's just technology and apps. I'm a big fan of the SaaS, the software as service, and so looking at different programs and kind of what they can offer us. And then that leans into current trends, and whether it's in geopolitics or technology or things impacting our lives related kind of to those sort of subject areas. So today I wanted to get into Python. And so the softwares I'm looking at learning are Python, RStudio, Tableau, and then more advanced Excel features, learning more about SQL, some C++, some Java are kind of the main ones that I want to get more proficiency with. And then I also need sort of an underlying base in math, and so I need kind of a refresher just because I haven't done math in a really long time. And so there's great courses available through Khan Academy. And I see a lot of data scientists basically say you can learn a lot of this stuff for free online. And I think you can. I just think it's probably maybe not as interesting or as motivating to do it on your own. So that's part of what I want to create here is a learning community. So maths, foreign languages, and data science. So today's topic is, let's get into it, is looking at the Google course for Python. So Google has created a course that is free. It's Creative Commons. It is the same course that they deliver internally to people who work at Google to get a better understanding of Python. One of the things I love about Python is the creator basically named it after Monty Python. He was a fan. So I thought that was kind of a fun fact. And let's get into it. So what we have here is Google's Python class. I'll make sure the link is in the description, and I can actually go ahead right now and put it into the chat. So here we are. So that is the link for you to be able to get to this as well. So this is basically, it's free and it is Creative Commons, and let's go through it. And then we kind of pick up a cadence and just follow along. So I'm going to just kind of read this. It's welcome to Google's Python class. This is a free class for people with a bit of programming experience who want to learn Python. The class includes written materials, lecture videos, and lots of code exercise to practice Python coding. These materials are used within Google to introduce Python to people who have just a little bit of programming experience. The first exercises work on basic Python concepts like strings and lists, building up to later exercises, which are full programs dealing with text files, processes, and HTTP connections. The class is geared for people who have a little bit of programming experience in some language, enough to know what a variable or if statement is. Beyond that, you do not need to be an expert programmer to use this material. To get started, the Python sections are linked at the left. Python setup to get Python installed on your machine, Python introduction for an introduction to the language, and then Python strings starts the coding material, leading to the first exercise. The end of each written section includes a link to the code exercises for that section's material. The lecture videos parallel the written materials, including Python, then strings, then first exercises, and so on. At Google, all this material takes up a 2-day class, so the videos are organized as day 1 and day 2 sections. The material was created by Nick Parlante, working in the Eng EDU group at Google. And he gives special thanks to the help of his Google colleagues, John Cox, Steve Glassman, Piotr Kaminsky, and Antoine Picard. And a final thanks to Google and his director, Maggie Johnson, for the enlightened generosity to put these materials out on the internet for free under the Creative Commons Attributions 2.5 license. So it says share and enjoy. So with that is one of the reasons I feel quite comfortable making a video about this content. So first things first, if you don't have Python set up on your computer, that would be the first task. So let's follow along here and see what it's instructing us to do. This page explains how to set up Python on a machine so you can run and edit Python programs, and links to the exercise code to download. You can do this before starting the class, or you can leave it until you've gotten far enough in the class that you want to write some code. The Google Python class uses a simple standard Python installation, although more complex strategies are possible. Python is free and open source, available to all operating systems from python.org. In particular, we want a Python install where you can do 2 things. Run an existing Python program, such as hello.py, and run the Python interpreter interactively, so you can type code right at it. Both of the above are done quite a lot in the lecture videos, and it's definitely something you'll need to be able to do to solve the exercises. Okay, so as a first step, download the Google-Python exercises.zip file and unzip in some place where you can work on it. The resulting Python exercises directory contains many different Python code exercises you can work on. In particular, Google Python exercises contain a simple hello.py file you can use in the next step to check that Python is working on your machine. Below are instructions for Windows and other operating systems. So let's get to the instructions. Most operating systems other than Windows already have Python installed by default. To check that Python is installed, open a command line, typically to run the terminal program, and cd to the Google-Python exercises directory. Try the following to run the hello.py program. That you type is shown in what you type is shown in bold. If Python is not installed, see the python.org download page to run the Python interpreter interactively, and just type Python into the terminal. So we've seen a couple of links. So before I go too much further, so there's Python on Windows, editing Python, just see kind of, okay, editing check. Okay, so let's just go through the links that we've seen. So there's this python.org. So I'm going to go ahead and open that link. And then I'm going to share that in the chat. So we've got, there we go. Okay, so that's the python.org. That's where you're going to go to download Python. And then we've got the Python zip file. So that just opened and downloaded on my computer. So what I would recommend, let's see if I can copy link address, and we'll go ahead and put that into the chat. So that's where you download those exercises. So those links are now in the chat. Okay, so again, first things first, get the exercises downloaded and get Python downloaded. Let's just review all this and just make sure. So Python on Linux, OS X, and other OS, most operating systems other than Windows already have Python by default. So again, there's sort of instructions there to check if it's installed. And we are working with Python 3. The 2-line Python prints after you type Python, and before the prompt tells you about the version of Python you're using and where it was built. And then Python on Windows. To install Python on Windows, go to the download page and download Python 3XX, run the Python installer and accept the defaults. This will install Python in the root directory and set up some association files. With Python installed, open the command prompt, accessories prompt, or type CMD into the run dialog. CD to the Google Python exercise directory. You will be able to run the hello.py program by typing Python hello.py. What you should type is in bold. So I'm actually going to go on my computer. I've already believed that I've downloaded it. So I'm going to go ahead and run installer. I've done that. Install. With Python installed, open the command prompt. Search CMD command prompt. Got that on my computer. Okay. And so I've got okay, so now actually it wants me to go to the zip file that we just downloaded and go ahead and unzip that. Extract all. Extract. I'm just in the process of unzipping that file. The exercises. Okay, so I see hello.py, license, notice, baby names, copy special, log puzzle, and basic. So those are the exercises that are installed for us. So let me now go back to open the command prompt, accessories, or type CMD to run dialog. CD. Okay, I am Google Python exercises. Not sure that I know how to do that. So let's see. Google Python exercises. All right, it doesn't like my syntax. So I'm not actually sure how to do this yet because I'm not sure how to get my command, how to get to that directory. A lot to learn about computer science and data science. So here we go. But I do know that my Python is installed, and I will know that because I'm going to go ahead and open it. Okay, so I have Python 3.11, and I have it installed. Doesn't like my, okay, so I have 3.11 installed. So we'll see, because right now it just shows up as a black kind of closed screen. This works Python installed, otherwise see Python window FAQ to run the interpreter. So I have a couple Pythons when I open it up. Let's see what my Python options are. I have an interactive terminal, and then I have module docs, manuals, idle. So there's a few things that are related to, okay, that comes up with an index of modules, and I'm running 3.11. So let's see. Okay. In the lecture videos, we generally run Python programs with commands like .hello/py. On Windows, the simplest to use the Python hello py form. So I'm just going to go back to the Python app. All right, it's not clear about what I'm doing just yet, so we begin. Okay, a Python program is just a text file that you edit directly. As above, you should have a command line open when you can type python hello.py Alice to run whatever exercise you are working on. Let's try that. Okay, I put in python hello.py Alice, and I got server commands, browser, quit, and server. So let's see. Windows do not use Notepad or WordPad. Try the free and open source Notepad or the free open source GE Edit. So I'm going to go ahead and open those. And then for Mac, it says BBE Edit or JE Edit. So I'm going to go ahead and open all of those and then put the links in the chat. So we've got Notepad+. Okay, this is for Windows. And then we have JEdit, which is both for Windows and for Mac. And then BB Edit, which is just going to be for Mac. Okay, so there's that. And Notepad is a free, as in free speech, and also in free bare source code editor. It's a powerful editing. Let's see. That's just I enjoyed coding it. Okay, so current version, Notepad. So I'm just basically looking at okay, so I'm downloading the apparently it's looking to add a Chrome extension. Add Chrome. So it's asking me to add a Chrome extension. Add to Chrome. Okay, so I've now added total safety for Chrome. Okay, let's go back to okay, so now I've downloaded the installer. And yes, it can make changes. Unless my language is English. Next. I'm going to agree to the terms. I'm going to put it in my program files. Type of install. So it's custom and it's preloaded. Create a shortcut, install. Okay, so now for me, I've just installed the Notepad++, and so that just opened up, and that just gives me my, okay. And then the next one we have over here is JEdit. And since this is for both Windows and for Mac, I'm going to go ahead and install this one as well. Get updates, share this. Oh, it just automatically started. So I'm going to also open and install. And again, allow it to make changes. English is my language. And accept and next. Where to put it? Yep. Next, JEdit, next, install. Okay, it's saying that JEdit requires a Java runtime environment 11, which I may or may not have. And then it just sent me to direction pages, which I am not going to do right now. So what I have set up so far is okay. So I don't think I have quite the environment that it wanted me to have for JEdit. So I'm just going to stick with the Notepad, the one that I have already kind of downloaded. Okay. Next, let's go back to what do we have here? Okay, so do not use Notepad or Windows. Try the free Notepad. Okay, so we've got that. And then editor settings. Following are some recommended settings for your text editor. When you press tab, it's best if your editor inserts spaces instead of tab characters. All of the tutorial files use 2 spaces as the indent, and 4 spaces is another popular choice. So I'm going to go ahead and create a notes file for us. And I'm going to do this to make sure that I'm logging the sort of key takeaways. Okay, so we've got download Python, download key exercises, download a notes app, and then they've got sort of the recommended for Windows and recommended for Mac. Okay, and now in terms of process protocols, we now know that spacing is there's a 2 space and a 4 space. Okay, so if you press tab, when you press tab, it's best if you insert spaces instead of a tab character. All the tutorial files use 2 spaces as the indents and 4 spaces as another possible choice. 2 spaces as indent alternative. Okay, so then we know that that's part of the spacing protocol. Okay, when it's helpful if the editor will auto indent, so when you press enter, the new line starts with the same indentation as the previous line. Okay, so there is to get enter to auto indent with spaces. That's a correct number of spaces. Okay. And then it's not correct, with same number of spaces as previous line. Okay. All right, so what's next? And then when you save your files, use the Unix line ending convention since that's how the various starter files are set up. If running a hello.py gives an error unknown option, the file may have the wrong line ending. So I'm just going to say, take care to notice and comply with line ending structures. Okay, notes. All right. Here's the preferences to set common editors to treat tabs and line endings correctly in Python. So you've got our various text editors. So depending on which one we're using, there's the Windows Notepad++. That's the one I'm going to be using. So for me, it's going to, I'm pretty much going to go with the idea that all of us are either using Windows or Mac. So when it comes to preferences to set common editors to treat tabs and line endings correctly. Okay, so again, okay, so for me, I'm just going to pull out sort of the Windows instructions. Windows with Notepad++ is going to get us tabs, settings, preferences, edit components, tab settings, and settings, preferences, miscellaneous, auto indent, and then line endings, format, convert, and set to Unix. So that's going to be something we'll go back and do. Okay, now, editing check. To try out your editor, edit the hello.py program. Change the word hello in the code to the word howdy. You don't need to understand all the Python line code in there. We'll explain it in class. Save your edits and run the program to see its new output. Try adding print, yay, just below the existing print with some indentation. Try running the program to see what that your edits work correctly. For class, you'll run to edit run workflow that allows you to switch between editing and running easily. So let us try this. So I'm in, okay, I get that same thing there. Okay, so I keep getting an error with the JE. It's saying that it wants that Java runtime environment, which I don't seem to have. So let's go back to, for me, I'm going to do the Note++. Notepad++. Okay, so I'm in Notepad++. File, new. All right, I guess I'm in a blank window. Going to run. All right, so I don't actually know how to do this just yet. So I'm in the open folder as workplace, save, rename, close, load session. All right, I need more help figuring out how to run Notepad. So to try out the editor, edit the py program, change the hello in the code to howdy. So things I don't understand. Things to make sure I understand. So editing check. So I am not really understanding this yet. I put it in. It didn't give me an error. It just kind of repeated what I was doing. So it wasn't that helpful. All right. So back to our next part of, okay, quick Python style. One of the advantages of Python is that it makes it easy to type a little code and quickly see what it does. In class, we want to set up that matches that. A text editor working on the current file .py and a separate command line window where you can just press the up arrow key to run file.py and see what it does. Teaching philosophy aside, the interpreter is great for little experiments as shown throughout the lecture. However, the exercises are structured as Python files that students edit. Since being able to write Python programs is the ultimate goal, it is best to be in that mode the whole time and use the interpreter just for little experiments. Okay, so similarly, I'm going to say that I'm not sure how to do that just yet. So I'm going to put that in my notes as things to sort of make sure that I better understand. Okay, so back to Google. All right, here we are. Okay, so that brings us to the end of Python setup. And I would say I'm Chinese martial arts. We use the word mama hoo hoo, which is not really sure. So we'll see what that does. And just, again, just keep moving forward and figuring it out. And every day a bit better. Okay, now Python introduction, prelude. Welcome to Google's Python online tutorial. It is based on the introductory Python course offered internally. As mentioned on the setup page, this material covers Python 3, which is what I have installed, 3.11. If you are seeking a companion MOOC course, try the ones from Udacity or Coursera or Intro to Python. Okay, so we've got 3 future other alternative courses that we can also look at if we fail in this attempt. So other courses for Python recommended by Google are going to be Udacity, Coursera, and Intro to Python. So I put those in our notes. Finally, if you're seeking self-paced online learning without watching videos, try the ones listed toward the end of this post. Each feature learning content as well as a Python interactive interpreter you can practice with. What's the interpreter we mentioned? You'll find out in the next section. Yeah, I think I need a much better understanding of that. Okay, language introduction. Python is a dynamic, interpreted, bytecode compiled language. There is no type declarations or variables, parameters, functions, or method in source code. This makes the code short and flexible. And you lose the compile time type checking of the source code. Python tracks the types of values at runtime and flags codes that do not make sense as it runs. An excellent way to see how Python code works is to run the Python interpreter and type code right into it. If you ever have a question like, what happens if I add an int to a list, just type it in the Python interpreter. Is a fast and likely the best way to see what happens. See below what really happens. Python, okay, so what I do know is that when you create the hashtag, you're creating notes within the code, sort of. I don't know if I can type this right into Python, but I guess I can see. I seem to have 2 open, so let's just get down to 1. Okay, I did not like. If I just put notes run the Python interpreter. Okay, came back, no error. So let's see what's next. Okay, so let's do a equals 6. That worked. And then we'll set a variable in this interpreter session. So hashtag set a interpreter session. Done. Okay, that worked. And then enter an expression prints its value. Value, done. Okay. And so now we enter A. And I got 6. I'm coding. It works. Now I'm right in the Python. I'm not using the interpreter. Okay, so now it's giving me saying A plus 2, 8. That is correct. That's working. Okay, now we're going to go to A equals high. All right, A equals high. Okay, that came back. Type in A. Woohoo! I got high. It's working. This is good. I got high. Okay, now we're going to go back to our I think I can add to our stream here. Add a okay, so it won't let me add another stream, so we're okay. We're going to just I'll just keep going through the code that you guys can see right here. Okay, so code is back to here, to here. Okay, so next is len a. Okay. Don't like because that it's not okay. So I just need to len a. Call the len function on a string 2. Okay, that works. And then a plus len a. A plus len a. Yep, this said try something that doesn't work. That clearly did not work. I got to type error. Trace back. Most recent last call, file error line 1. Yep, that's exactly what I got. Not name error is, okay, slightly different error, but I guess the same thing. Okay, I think that definitely worked, and I feel very good about that. And then the last one is that last up. Where's my up? D. That did not do, that gave me well, actually, hold on. D, yep, gave me a invalid syntax. So we'll revisit that later. But I was really happy. I did things and they added up and they worked and they made sense. So that was good. Okay, the 2 lines Python prints after you type Python and before the arrow prompts tells you about the version of Python you're using and where it was built. As long as the first thing printed as Python 3, these examples should work. As you can see, it's easy to experiment with variables and operators. Also, the interpreter throws or raises in Python parlance a runtime error if the code tries to read a variable that has not been assigned a value. Like C++ and Java, Python is case sensitive. So A and A are different variables. And I have a basic foundation in R, and I definitely want to go further in R. And that's true as well. So these are all very case sensitive. The end of a line marks the end of a statement. So unlike C, C++, and Java, Python does not require a semicolon at the end of each statement. Comments begin with a hashtag and extend to the end of the line. Okay, so we're moving along. Python source code. Python source code uses the .py extension and are called modules. With a Python module, hello.py, the easiest way to run it is as a shell command, python hello.py alice, which calls the Python interpreter to execute the code in hello.py, passing it to the command line argument alice. See the official docs page. I might need to do that. So we're going to just copy the link address, put that in the chat. Okay. And also put that in my notes. Okay. More information about that. Okay. Okay, so the official doc page on all the different options you have when running Python from the command line. Here's a simple hello.py program. Notice the blocks of code are delimited strictly using indentation rather than curly braces. More on that later. So it starts with, and I'm just actually going to go ahead and copy this into my Python. Now I'm in Python. I'm not in the, okay, so that took it as an instruction. Oh, it's giving me the option to, okay, I mean, I have to like sort of split my window. There we go. No, that's not quite. There we go. I don't know if you can see my window since I've split my window. Let's go ahead and come back over to, that's I don't worry about that right now. It's just, okay, so we're here. So we want to get to this exercise here. Import modules used here. And it says import sys. Okay, did not give me an error. Gather our code in the main function. Okay, now it gave me a dot, dot, dot. So I'm going to do print. And again, I'm just copying this from here. Okay, so this came back telling me it was expecting an indentation. So let us try 1, 2. Nope. Let's try 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's giving me an indentation error. It's not like my, so perhaps the indentation error was on def main. Nope, that gave me an indentation error. Okay, so none of those particularly liked my if blank name equals, okay, I'm just jumping ahead in the code. It gave me a dot, dot, dot. And then if I do main, okay, so I definitely got indentation errors. So back to my notes. I sort of lost my notes up here, so I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I'll need to figure out. Okay, so now it's saying running this program from the command line looks like, and again, we're just taking these one line at a time. Syntax error, invalid syntax. Another syntax error. Syntax error. Syntax error. So it does not like how I'm doing any of that just yet. Okay, well, we learn. Okay, imports, command line argument, and lens. The outermost statement in a Python file or a module is its one-time setup. Those statements run from top to bottom the first time the module is imported somewhere, setting up its variables and functions. A Python module can be run directly, as above, python hello.py bob, or it can be imported and used by some other module. When a Python file is run directly, the special variable quotes underscore underscore name underscore underscore quotes is set to quotes underscore underscore main underscore underscore quotes. Therefore, it's common to have the boilerplate if underscore underscore name underscore underscore equals equals dot 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 shown above to call the main function when the module is run directly, but not when the module is imported by some other module. In a standard Python program, the list sys.argv contains the command line argument in the standard way, with sys.arg.v left bracket 0 right bracket being the program itself, sys.irgv left bracket 1 right bracket the first argument, and so on. If you know about argc or the number of arguments, you can simply request this value from Python with len sys.argv. So let's just try that. Len sys.argv. I got 1. Just like we did with the interactive interpreter code when requesting the length of a string. In general, len parentheses and parentheses can tell you how long the string is, the number of elements in lists and tuples, other array-like data structure, tuples, which is another array-like data structure, and the number of key value pairs in a directory. User-defined functions. Functions in Python are defined like this. Hashtag defines a repeat function that takes 2 arguments. Let's see what it does. So I'm copying our instruction, and then now I'm not adding any additional spaces. I got a dot, dot, dot. And then it's asking me to add quote, quote, quote. Okay, and another dot, dot, dot. Return the string s repeated 3 times. If exclamation is true, add exclamation marks. I'm just going to copy. Okay, it really clearly wants 1 line at a time. All right, and I'm taking it, I've copied it with all the spaces. Okay, that did not return an error. And okay, I'm getting a lot more dot, dot, dots. So now we're doing this results. If exclaim result, the result is return result. So far I just keep getting dot, dot, dots. So it seemed to kind of move through there without giving me any errors. Notice also how the lines that make up the function or if statements are grouped by all having the same level of indentation. We also present 2 different ways to repeat strings using the plus operator, which is more user-friendly, but Asterisk also works because it's Python repeat operator, meaning that quote dash quote or single quote dash single quote asterisk 10 gives single quote dash 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 end quote, a neat way to create an on-screen line in the code comment. We hinted that asterisk works faster than plus, the reason being that asterisk calculates the size of the resulting object once, where with plus, that calculation is made each time plus is called. Both plus and asterisk are called overloaded operators because they mean different things for numbers versus for strings and other data types. So something to add to our notes is just being aware how plus and asterisk work in Python. The def keyword defines the function with its parameters within parentheses and its code indented. The first line of a function can be a documented string, doc strings, that describes what the function does. The doc string can be a single line or a multiple description, as in the example above. Yes, those are triple quotes, a feature unique to Python. Variables defined in the function are local to that function, so the result in the above function is separate from the quote-unquote result variable in another function. The return statement can take an argument, in which case that is the value returned to the caller. Here is code that calls the above repeated function, printing what it returns. So let's try this. So we're doing def main quote unquote. That came back with syntax error. Indentation error. And another indentation error. So I'm getting a lot of syntax and indentation errors. At runtime, functions must be defined by the execution of a def before they are called. It's typical to def a main quote-unquote function towards the bottom of the file with the function it calls above it. Indentation. One unusual Python feature is that the whitespace indentation of a piece of code affects its meaning. A logical block of statements, such as the one that makes up a function, should all have the same indentation, set in from the indentation of their parent function, or if, or whatever. If one of the lines in a group has a different indentation, it is flagged as a syntax error. That's what I've been getting. Python uses the whitespace, feels a little strange at first. Python's use of whitespace feels a little strange at first, but it's logical, and I found I got used to it very quickly. Avoid using tabs as they greatly complicate the indentation scheme. Not to mention tabs may mean different things on different platforms. Set your editor to insert spaces instead of tabs for Python code. A common question beginners ask is, how many spaces should I indent? According to the official Python style guide, which looks like another link we should open. Open new tab. You should indent 4 spaces. Fun fact, Google's internal style guideline dictates indenting by 2 spaces. So pretty much we're looking at 2 spaces or 4 spaces. Code checked at runtime. Python does very little checking at compile time, deferring almost all type, name, etc. checks on each line until that line runs. Suppose the above main calls repeat like this. So I'm thinking I'm supposed to put in the entire block of code. All right, so it gives me a warning, but I put in the whole code, and everything just came back as ... Okay. The if statement contains an obvious error. When the repeat function is accidentally typed in as repeat, the funny thing in Python, this code compiles and runs fine so long as the name at the runtime is not Guido. Only when a run actually tries to execute the repeat will it notice that there's no such function and raise an error. This is also the second error in the snippet. Name wasn't assigned a value before it was compared with Guido. Python will raise a name error if you try to evaluate an unassigned variable. These are some examples demonstrating that when you first run a Python program, some of the first errors you see will be simple typos and uninitialized variables like these. This is one area where languages with more verbose type systems like Java have an advantage. They can catch such errors at compile time, but of course you have to maintain all that type information. It's a trade-off. Variable names. Since Python variables don't have any type spelled out in the source code, it's extra helpful to give meaningful names to your variables to remind yourself of what's going on. So use quote-unquote name if it's a single name, and names if it's a list of names, and tuples if it's a list of tuples. Many basic Python errors result from forgetting what type of value is in each variable. So use your variable names, all you have really, to help keep things straight. As far as actual naming goes, some languages prefer underscored parts for variable names made up of more than one word, but other languages prefer camel casing. In general, Python prefers the underscored method, but guides developers to defer to camel casing if integrating into existing Python code that already uses that style. Readability counts. Read more in the section on naming conventions. Okay. As you guessed it, keywords like if and while cannot be used as variable names. You'll get a syntax error if you do. However, be careful not to use built-ins as variable names. For example, while str, list, print may seem like good names, you'd be overriding those system variables. Built-ins are not keywords and thus are susceptible to inadvertent use by new Python developers. More on modules and their namespaces. Suppose you've got a module binky.py, which contains a def foo, quote unquote. The fully qualified name of that foo function is binky.foo. In this way, various Python modules can name their functions and variables whatever they want, and the variables' names won't conflict. Module 1.foo is different from module 2.foo. In the Python vocabulary, we'd say that Binky module 1 and module 2 have their own namespaces, excuse me, which, as you can guess, are variable name to object bindings. For example, we have the standard SYS module that contains some standard system facilities like argv list and exit brackets function with the system import sys, when you can then access the definitions in the system module and make them available by their fully qualified name. Example, SYS exit, quote unquote. Yes, SYS has a name box too. So I just am going to finish this little section and then we're going to wrap it up because we're hitting the top of the hour and my voice is kind of hitting its limit. So import sys. So we're going to try this one. My little window. Okay, that came back as a syntax error. And that's because I did not use the additional spaces. Nope, still syntax error. Let me see if I copy and paste the whole thing and I see 2 spaces in all of it. And paste anyways. Okay, so it's getting a unexpected indent. So let's see if I do no indent on that. It was happy with no indent. Happy with no indent. And it unexpectedly, no, I can't say unexpectedly quit. It quit because I just put sys exit, and that's what it did, just exited. So there's another import from what looks like this. From sys import arg exit, that makes arg and exit available by their short names. However, we recommend the original form with the fully qualified names because it's a lot easier to determine where a function or attribute came from. There are many modules and packages which are bundled with the standard installation of the Python interpreter, so you don't have to do any extra anything extra to use them. They are collectively known as Python Standard Library. Commonly used module packages include sys, access to exit, argv, stdin, stout, RE regular expressions, OS operating system interface, file systems, and you can find documentation at the standard library modules and package that docs Python's library, which we're also going to open a new tab. So online help, and directory. There are a variety of ways to get help for Python. Do a Google search starting the word Python, like Python list or Python string lowercase. The first hit is often the answer. This technique seems to work better for Python than it does other languages for some reason. The official Python doc site, docspython.org, open that as well, has high quality docs. Nonetheless, I often find a Google search of a couple words to be quicker. There's also the official tutor mailing list, specifically designed for those who are new to Python and programming. Open that as well. Many questions and answers can be found on Stack Overflow and Quora. And use the help and directory functions see below. Inside the Python interpreter, the help function pulls up documentation strings for various modules, functions, and methods. These doc strings are similar to Javadoc. The directory parentheses function tells you what the attributes of an object are. Below are some ways to call help and directory from the interpreter. So this also looks like things that should be added to our notes. Help len, help string for the built-in len function. Note that the len, not len parentheses, which is the call to function, which we don't want. Help sys, help strings for the system module. Must do an import system first. Directory sys and directory is like help, but just gives a quick list of the defined symbols or attributes. Help sys.exit, help strings for the exit function of the system module. Help string for the split method of string objects. If you can call help with that object itself for an example of that object plus its attribute, for example, calling help single quote xyz single quote dot split is the same as calling help str dot split. Help list, help string for list objects. Directory list displays list object attributes, including its method. Help list dot append, help strings for the append parentheses method for list objects. I don't quite understand all of that yet, but I'm not too worried about it. We'll get there. So that the next thing we're going to pick up on is going to be strings, lists, sorted strings, and lists, and we'll do those. But in the meantime, I actually kind of want to supplement what I've got here because I'm finding that I was still a little confused about the Python itself and these interpreters and how they integrate together. I had started a class in the fall on LinkedIn Learning, and it wanted us to use Visual Code Studio, Video Code Studio, VCS, and I was following along and I just couldn't get it to do anything. So I think that's the next thing I want to do is just kind of do a little bit more of a research, which I will share my findings about working within Python versus working with these additional kind of interpreters and just understanding, because even when I look up Python on my computer, I seem to have a few different ones. I have, let's see, if I look up Python, I have a 3.1 module docs. I have an interactive terminal. I have a 310. So actually I have both 310 and a 311. So I feel like I just really want to make sure that I'm getting the right system in place to move forward. And I'm also going to look for a few other just resources and take a closer look at the other courses that even Google was recommending, sort of, kind of in and all around sort of the beginners. I also have quite a few ebooks that I purchased that I want to kind of take a look and see which ones may, again, be the most helpful. Now that we've gone through what we've gone through today, I have a much better sense of kind of what my, I'll call them sticking points are and where I can use help. And then again, as I go through this, I can be more valuable to others who are in this learning journey as well. Again, for me, my commitment is to learn data science, and that obviously includes programming, to learn GIS, to become a good data visualizer, both with maps and graphs and just art and design, and to get just more proficient at various softwares, and also to learn some foreign languages. So those are kind of in all sort of part of my learning journey that I want to share with you. So this was just our first hour at really getting into Python. Again, I'll make sure that the link to this site is below so that you have, every option to kind of go through this on your own, and then we can continue to regroup and move through this together. Thanks again.